Are you under the impression that coffee comes from beans, or that there's zero gravity in space? Forget everything you thought you knew. Mount Everest is, in actual fact, not the tallest mountain in the world, and the Spanish flu didn't come from Spain. Twinkies don't last forever, and dolphins aren't friendly. If none of what I'm saying makes any sense to you, you've come to the right place. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 things everybody knows that are false. 25. Bagpipes are Scottish. We also had a hard time believing this, but they're not. These Scottish national instruments' origins can actually be traced back to ancient Egypt. Those early bagpipes were very close to those we know today. However, the instrument was somewhat more disturbing. The bag was mostly composed of dog skin rather than that of sheep, and the tubes were created out of bone, not wood. The first recorded mention of the instrument in Egypt dates back to 400 BCE, when it was used by the pipers of Thebes. Later, the bagpipes became popular in ancient Rome, which is undoubtedly how they found their way to Europe. The Scottish then perfected the instrument and transformed it into what it is today. 24. Dogs sweat through their tongue. If you're a dog lover like I am, you'll be familiar with the huff, puff, and panting that comes after a good exercise session. But is that how dogs sweat? As it turns out, the answer is yes and no. Your dog's panting is a method of evaporative cooling. When your pooch gets hot, it'll open its jaws and breathe heavily. As the water evaporates from its nasal passages, tongue, and lungs, its core temperature drops. While dogs typically use panting to stay cool, they also sweat. But not in the way you may imagine. Dogs sweat through their paws. The sweat glands in their paws are known as merocrine glands. They also sweat through their apocrine glands throughout their body. However, that type of sweat doesn't help them cool down. 23. Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to represent America. We all know that the bald eagle symbolizes the United States. However, a pervasive myth keeps going around saying that Benjamin Franklin wanted it to be another bird, the turkey. As funny as that is, given our love for turkeys at Thanksgiving, it's simply not true. What Franklin did do was muse about the nobility of the eagle and comment that the design on the seal more closely resembled a turkey than an eagle, but those musings were kept private. The myth only gained real traction in 1962, when the New Yorker published an edition with the Great Seal reimagined as a turkey as their cover art. And the rest, as they say, is history. 22. Food expires at its best before date. With food prices going through the roof, we all want to make the most of what we have and eliminate waste. Reducing food waste also helps to combat climate change. It's estimated that food waste alone accounts for more than 10% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. While fresh fish, meat, and poultry, as well as ready-to-eat meals and fresh pasta, are required to have a use-by date for food safety reasons, others, such as fresh fruit and vegetables, bread, and some cheeses, yogurts, and juices, don't. The truth is that the best before dates are sometimes quite conservative, and food can last considerably longer than stipulated with no appreciable loss in quality. The best way to identify if a food is safe to consume is to look at it, smell it, taste it, and trust your own judgment. 21. Toilet seats are full of germs. A perfectly logical conclusion, seeing as how toilets are a common feature in the world's most unsanitary place and process. However, according to the University of Arizona's recent study, toilet seats are actually fairly clean. This is because they are regularly scrubbed, sprayed, and cleaned so as to rid them of all that disgusting butt essence. On the contrary, you're likely to find 10 times more germs on a surface used more and cleaned less regularly. Your cell phone screens. How disgusting. 20. Coffee comes from coffee beans. We're only 5 items in, and I've already been scolded more than once. Coffee is not actually made from coffee beans at all. Coffee beans might look like beans, but they're really the pit or seed of the fruit that sprouts on the coffee trees. Coffee cherries are little bright red fruits that grow on coffee trees, and I did not know that. Did you? Let me know in the comments below. God, it smells so good. I want to dip these in chocolate and just eat them. 19. Twinkies last forever. If you've been secretly planning on finding the first available Twinkie stash if the zombie apocalypse hits, well, I've got bad news for you. Although they have a reputation for lasting forever, they, like any food containing moisture, begin to spoil quite fast, even while still safely tucked away, wrapped in plastic, and boxed in a container. In fact, according to Business Insider, they only last about 25 days. Ooh, 25. Maybe Twinkie the Kid should be the new List 25 mascot. 18. Sharks can detect blood from a mile away. I'm not sure if this is going to make you feel better or worse, but you know what? Let's just meet the myth halfway. Sharks have an amazing sense of smell. In fact, they can detect as little as a drop at a concentration of 1 part per 10 billion, or roughly a pinpoint size of droplet in a pool more or less the size of an Olympic swimming pool. That's, at best, a couple of football fields, certainly not a mile. But I still wouldn't take any chances going into the water with a paper cut. 17. St. Patrick is Irish. I'm so sorry for doing this to you so soon after the Scottish bagpipes entry, but the saint so strongly related to Irish pride and St. Patrick's Day wasn't even from Ireland. I'm probably more Irish than him, and I just found that out in our one video. According to Catholic Online, St. Patrick was born in Roman Britain. As a child, he was kidnapped by Irish pirates and brought to the country to look after sheep. He became a missionary and is credited with bringing Christianity to parts of Ireland. As such, St. Patrick's Day was initially a religious holiday, only becoming the cheeky pint-in-hand festival celebrated across Ireland and other parts of the world today in the 1800s. 16. Paul Revere held up the lanterns in the Old North Church. Like so many kids growing up, I learned about Paul Revere's midnight ride and the instructions about the lanterns in the old church to signal the strategy behind the British invasion. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. But who was the man behind the signals? Well, it wasn't Paul Revere. Although the Newman and Pulling families have argued over the name of the ultimate hero for the past 200 years, many historians have split the difference, pointing out that both men climbed the stairs and hung the lanterns. But why don't we know for certain? According to Concord Museum curator David Wood, it's because no one wanted the credit. Because Newman and Pulling were still British subjects, hanging the lanterns amounted to treason. 15. Everest is the highest mountain in the world. According to the online science journal ScienceNews.org, the number of mountains beneath our oceans has officially doubled. Satellites have discovered nearly 20,000 previously unknown seamounts, according to scientists. Like land-based mountains, underwater mountains are measured from their base to their peak. This brings us to another doozy. Mount Everest is in fact not the tallest mountain on Earth. Mauna Kea, a dormant volcano off the coast of Hawaii, holds that honor. To put their height difference into perspective, imagine seeing Mauna Kea out on the water. Mount Everest's summit is 29,035 feet above sea level, and Mauna Kea's total height is 33,500 feet. That makes it almost a mile higher than Everest. And if you thought that was an awesome fact, you need to stick around for the item at number 1 on today's list, because you're going to love it. Or have your mind blown by it. Or I guess hate it, if you just stick around. 14. Glass is a slow-moving liquid. The concept that stained glass windows in ancient churches were thicker at the bottom due to the slow flow of glass has finally been debunked. Contrary to popular belief, the increased thickness at the base came from the production process, not any liquid-like glass movements. However, despite this knowledge, the myth persists, fueled by the notion that glass, as a supercooled viscous substance, retains the properties of a flowing liquid. Glass, however, undergoes vitrification during cooling, maintaining a solid-like state without crystallization. To eliminate the myth once and for all, researchers examined a 20-million-year-old blob of preserved amber, an organic polymer similar to glass in its dynamics. Through calorimetric and stress relaxation tests, they proved that the amber did not exhibit any diverging relaxation times, conclusively debunking the idea of glass as a flowing substance. Will this finally get rid of the myth? Well, let's wait and see. Knowledge is power, after all. 13. Chimps have more hair than humans. If you photograph a chimp next to any of us, it wouldn't be strange to assume that the chimp is much hairier. However, that is not the case. Like other primates, humans have between 2 and 5 million hair follicles spread across their bodies. However, our hair is less coarse and noticeable. You see, unlike apes, humans have 2 types of hair: terminal and vellus. Terminal hair can be found on our heads, armpits, and pubic areas, whereas vellus hair can be found, well, everywhere else. Vellus hair is finer, shorter, and lighter in texture than terminal hair, and it's not connected to any glands beneath the skin. Exactly why we have these differences remains a mystery. 12. You can fix a wet phone by putting in rice. Having a phone end up in water has probably happened to all of us. And if it hasn't happened to you, you know someone it's happened to. Annoyingly, most of us have to get rid of the device after something wet happens. Unfortunately, rice is not the answer. Trust me, it will not help your phone to dry out faster or more effectively. In fact, it'll only cause more damage down the line as the dust and starch will get into the ports, blocking it. The best idea is to put the phone in a container along with a few silica gel packets. They absorb moisture more effectively than rice. Allow at least 48 hours for the device to dry out completely before switching it on again. And if you've got any other tips, please let us know in the comments. 11. There is zero gravity in space. We've all watched the footage of the astronauts floating around the ISS, or International Space Station, so it's easy to believe that there's no gravity up there. However, gravity exists everywhere in the universe. Without it, everything would fall apart and cease to exist. The astronauts appear weightless because both the space station and the crew are constantly falling toward Earth. Because all objects of the same mass drop at the same speed, the space station and the crew members fall simultaneously, giving the appearance of zero gravity. Fortunately, even if they continue to fall, they are unlikely to reach the Earth because the space station is flying at approximately 17,150 miles or 27,600 kilometers per hour, keeping both it and the occupants in orbit. 10. There are 7 colors in the rainbow. Actually, it's more like 1 million. The ones we can clearly see, red, yellow, orange, green, indigo, blue, and violet, Roy-G-Biv, all fall into what is known as the visible spectrum. The corals, pinks, browns, aquas, and so forth are all there, they're just invisible to the naked eye. We also think of rainbows in an arc form, but they're actually complete circles. We don't see the entire circle because we can only observe the light reflected over the horizon from our earthly vantage point. So there's no gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm sorry. Just dunking on the Irish today. It's okay, I'm very, very Irish myself. 9. Quicksand will suck you under. It's a famous Hollywood staple. Someone gets stuck in quicksand and disappears under the sand. Fortunately, the truth is far gentler. People can only partially sink into this type of soil, and laboratory simulations have confirmed this little-known fact. Quicksand is nothing more than ordinary sand that's been saturated with water to the point where the friction between the sand particles has been reduced, rendering them incapable of supporting any weight. The mixture is most commonly seen near the deltas of large rivers. It can also form when an earthquake causes water to be released from the subsurface reservoirs. The greatest risk of quicksand lies in the fact that you can get trapped in it right when the high tide comes in. That would be a horrible way to go. But yeah, no, Hollywood made it seem like quicksand was going to be just a constant worry in our adult lives. 8. The Spanish influenza came from Spain. Because it's known as the Spanish flu, many people believe it originated in Spain. However, nobody knows where the flu came from, though it definitely wasn't from Spain. In fact, Spain had fewer cases than many other countries. It only became known as the Spanish flu since Spain was one of the first, if not the first, to widely report on it. Because they were neutral during World War I, and had their own thing going on, their press was more unrestrained than other countries. Countries involved in the war, such as the UK, the US, and Russia, suppressed knowledge of the flu to a minimum to maintain morale. It's a classic case of blaming the messenger, as people attributed the illness to Spain, even though it only reported it honestly. 7. Abner Doubleday invented baseball. According to this popular myth, the game of baseball was invented in 1839 in a cow pasture near Cooperstown, New York by a man called Abner Doubleday. The story gained credibility in 1905 when a committee was appointed to investigate the game's origins and decided to go with the testimony of one man. However, the man's credibility was later questioned. Jeff Idelson, the former president of the US Baseball Hall of Fame, confirmed that the game was never invented in just one place. As far as baseball history is concerned, the first rules were officially authored by Alexander Joy Cartwright, who devised them for none other than the Knickerbockers Baseball Club. However, we know the best club in history is the Tampa Bay Rays. #Rays up. God, this was a disappointing season. 13-0 just to get eliminated in the first round. Oh man, swept in the first round. Doesn't matter, still a Rays fan. #Rays up. 6. An earthworm split in half becomes 2 worms. We really do hope that you only tried this out a few times as a kid. Though it might not look like it, earthworms have two distinct heads and tails. The head of the worm is always positioned on the end closest to the swelling band that encircles the animal, known as the citellum. When an earthworm is split in half, it doesn't grow into two new worms. However, if the animal is sliced behind the citellum, the head may survive and regrow its tail. The worm's original tail will not be able to produce a new head and will die off. There is another worm, however, that puts the earthworm's regenerating abilities to shame. The planarian flatworm belongs to a different phylum than earthworms and can rebuild its complete body from slivers just a fraction of its original size. God, can you imagine if we did that? Oh, hangnails would be a nightmare. 5. Camels store water in their humps. Well, if not water, what do they store in their humps? And the answer is fat. The fat accumulated in camel humps serves as an energy reserve. Water is stored primarily in their bloodstream, making them excellent at avoiding dehydration. Camels can go up to 7 days without drinking, but when they do, they go all out, up to 225 liters or 50 gallons at a time, enough to keep a family of 4 sated on the driest summer afternoons. 4. Snakes hear and react to music. Snakes are able to hear, but they do so less through external ears, which they obviously lack, and instead through low-frequency vibrations they pick up through their jawbones. Despite appearances, snakes are unfortunately deaf to regular airborne sounds, like music. So despite the common misconception of snake charmers lulling their snakes through their music, this lulling is done through the snake charmer's movements and other cues, such as the charmer's swaying motion, drawing the snake's attention to the moving object rather than the funky tune. 3. Dolphins are our friends. We've made it down to the final 3, and I am so sorry to break this to you, but dolphins, often viewed as our friendly ocean guardians, are vicious killers. Recent scientific discoveries have highlighted some of their more disturbing behaviors. For instance, they've been found to torture baby porpoises and have even taken to harming their own kind. The experts are baffled, and some have suggested there might be a possible sexual motive behind these actions. It can also hint at a growing intelligence in dolphins. As disturbing as it might be, only a few animals derive pleasure from killing, a trait shared perhaps only with humans. 2. Pilgrims and Native Americans celebrated Thanksgiving in peace. Most of what we're taught here in the US about Thanksgiving as children is probably wrong, but that's because the truth might put us off Thanksgiving forever. Thanksgiving was far more than just a harvest celebration between the Wampanoag Indians and the colonists. More settlers had arrived in the New World carrying a plague that took over 50% of the original population. As a result, there was a land dispute and strained ties between the two cultures. Even though there was a 3-day feast, it's unclear whether the Wampanoags were invited or simply turned up. Several narratives and theories about Thanksgiving's origins exist, but none are pleasant. 1. Soft water is healthier than hard water. Initially, one might be confused about hard and soft water's existence. I mean, water's water, isn't it? And it turns out there's a clear difference between the two. Hard water is generally your regular run-of-the-mill water with no sodium and all its natural minerals intact, whereas soft water is water that has all its minerals removed and includes sodium. Experts agree that hard water is the healthier choice between the two, as hard water includes benefits such as better heart function, blood sugar regulation, better digestion, and even cancer prevention. As it turns out, hard results are better than soft processed promises. So, what's something you knew that turned out to be false? Let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our social medias, including my personal ones, links in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, you have to watch our video, 25 Things People Know That Are Wrong, where I discuss the myth around the 3 wise men and Jesus, and will wow you with the actual reason bulls can't even see the color red. So you know what? Go to the video. Click on the link right here. Click on it. Yes, right here. This one. Click it. Stop thinking about it and do it, because you know you want to, and you are wrong for not wanting to. So, oh, look at that. References to literally 30 seconds ago. Click it. Click it while I drink my hard water.